gentlemen, kids of all ages, welcome to the Verb Circus, the Vaughn radio program where we'll review the most important verbs in English in a fun and challenging way. Be sure to pay attention because you'll be tested on your understanding throughout the program. Let the show begin. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Verb Circus. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of the Verb Circus. My name is Kyle, and as always, I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get things started by spinning the verb wheel. Interesting. I suppose we could talk about that verb. I suppose it's something new, something different. Well, yes, in fact, it is the verb to suppose. To suppose. Suponer. But we have to suppose and to be supposed to. To be supposed to and to suppose. So we have a number of different meanings here. To suppose can mean to assume something, as for the sake of argument or as part of a theory, for example. So suppose the distance is 1 mile. It's almost like saying, what if, imagine, assuming, suppose the distance from here to there is 1 mile. Would I be able to run that distance in 10 minutes? In 6 minutes? Supposing that it's a mile? Let's suppose. So to assume something, essentially. Also to consider something as a possibility or an idea or a planned proposal, for example. Suppose we wait until tomorrow. What would happen if? So here we're considering it as a possibility. Then also to believe or assume that something is true. It's like to take for granted, we say as well. So it's supposed that his death was an accident. It's taken for granted. It's supposed that his death was an accident, but maybe it wasn't. It's supposed that the ship hit an iceberg, but maybe it didn't. It's supposed. It's like saying it is believed that the ship hit an iceberg. We also use it in the sense of to think or to hold as an opinion. What do you suppose he'll do? What do you suppose he'll do now? He's retired. What do you suppose he'll do? It's like saying, what do you think? What do you think he'll do? What do you believe he'll do? What do you suppose he'll do? Now, a lot of these are similar. There are a lot of similarities between the different uses I have just described here. When you say, supongo que no, we say, I don't suppose that. Or I don't suppose that you know my brother, do you? It's like saying, I imagine or I believe or assume. Here in the negative, I don't suppose that you know my brother, do you? I don't suppose you've ever met him, have you? I guess so. I suppose so. Supongo que sí. I suppose so. Well, I suppose so. So here, normally we use this when we're not being very enthusiastic about something. We can say, well, so will you go to the concert with them? I suppose so. Supongo que sí. I suppose so. I don't really want to, but I suppose so. Will you stay in the office until the project is done? Well, I suppose so. And the same in the negative, will we say, I suppose not. It's already 5 o'clock. Will they be here on time? I suppose not. I suppose not. So in the negative, so in the affirmative, I suppose so. I suppose so. In the negative, I suppose not. Supongo que no. It's like saying, I imagine that they won't be here on time, for example, or whatever the case may be. I suppose not. So in the affirmative, I suppose so. In the negative, I suppose not. Now, to be supposed to. To be supposed to. This typically appears in the passive voice, where the verb is in the past participle, so ending with an ed. Well, if it's a regular verb, that is. So we're talking about what is expected of someone, although typically not a rule. For example, we're supposed to wear seat belts in taxis. Here, this is what is expected of people. People are expected to wear seat belts in taxis. It's not a rule, but listen, you're expected to wear seat belts. Okay? You're supposed to wear your seat belt. You're supposed to drive safely. You're supposed to be careful when you do that. You're supposed to do your homework. Right? It's expected of you. Okay? I was supposed to be at the meeting. Yeah. Was I? Was I supposed to be at the meeting? Really? Oh, okay. The workers are supposed to clean up after themselves. The machine is supposed to do the job very well. This microphone is supposed to capture everything I say. If it doesn't, then there's a problem with it. It's supposed to capture everything I say. Yeah. Since I'm the teacher, I'm supposed to know the answers, right? You're supposed to have questions, and I'm supposed to have answers. Now, I also want to mention, this is very interesting. We also use supposed to be when we're talking about a general opinion in the sense of dicen que. He's supposed to be really good at telling jokes. This show is supposed to be helpful for learning English. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. They say that this is supposed to be a very helpful show for helping you improve your English and for helping you master the most important verbs in the language. Now, in the interrogative, the structure to be supposed to can be used in the sense of se supone que in a question, or in the sense of tiene la reputación de ser. Isn't Madrid supposed to be warm? Imagine if it's a cold day. Isn't Madrid supposed to be warm? Isn't he supposed to be good at playing the guitar? He doesn't sound very good at playing the guitar. Isn't he supposed to be good? Right? Isn't he supposed to be good? Okay, very good. Now, we've gone about 7.5 minutes and I still haven't talked about the pronunciation of the verb. Every week I suppose. Last week I supposed. Lately I've supposed. Supposed. But natives, supposed. Natives usually put the S straight onto the P. Suppose. I suppose you're going to ask me a question. I suppose you're right. So we should say suppose, but when we speak quickly, we often say suppose. I suppose you're right. I suppose. Okay. So I'm not telling you to say this, but at least be aware that native speakers, when we speak quickly, we often drop that U sound and put the S straight onto the P. But remember, if we do that, well, regardless, there's no E in front of the S. Suppose, not no. I suppose. Okay? Now a few example sentences. I was supposed to stay in Spain. This is true. I was supposed to stay in Spain for only 1 year. Yeah. I suppose people are attracted to the country for some reason. People love Spain. I know so many people that have stayed here thinking, oh, I'll be in Spain for 1 year, and then they stay for 6 years, right? I suppose it's a nice country, you know. I suppose it doesn't really matter what we do. I suppose he doesn't care, right? I suppose. Vaughan teachers are supposed to wear ties. Well, they're supposed to dress well. Male teachers are supposed to wear ties, but many of them don't. No one has ever told me directly that I was supposed to wear a tie. I suppose it doesn't matter, as long as I look professional. Okay, so do you see how I used two completely different uses there? No one has ever told me that I was supposed to wear a tie. Supposed, ed. But now we have supposed to. But we're linking the sound, supposed to, supposed to. There is a D there, supposed to. But the sounds are linked. Supposed to, supposed to. No one has ever told me that I was supposed to wear a tie. And then I said, supongo que, I suppose it doesn't matter, as long as I look professional. I suppose the most important thing, is that we all act professionally and we do our job well and we're dressed reasonably well, right? These are the important things, right? I suppose that we've given enough examples. I suppose we've given enough examples, and I suppose that you should be ready. By now, you should be ready for the translation challenge. Let's do it. Translation challenge. Okay, yes, it is time for my favorite part of the program. That is the translation challenge. 10 sentences in Spanish. And I want you to say these sentences in English. Out loud, in voz alta. In fact, write them down. If you have a pen and paper, write them down. If you're driving a car, do not write them down. I don't want to be responsible for an accident. But I'm going to read these sentences. Number 1. Are you ready? Number 1. Supongo que vamos a perder de nuevo. I suppose we're going to lose again. I suppose we're going to lose again. Number 2. Debes llevar corbata todos los días. You're supposed to wear a tie every day. You're supposed to wear a tie every day. Number 3. No creo que lleguen a tiempo. Using suppose here, because you could say I don't think, but I don't suppose they'll be here on time. I don't suppose they'll be here on time. On time. Okay, number 4. Supongo que sí. I suppose so. I suppose so. Very good. Did you get that right? Supongo que sí. I suppose so. Number 5. Dicen que Tiger Woods es el mejor jugador de golf del mundo. Tiger Woods is supposed to be the best golfer in the world. Number 6. ¿A qué hora tenía que estar? ¿A qué hora tenía que estar? What time was I supposed to be here? What time was I supposed to be here? Number 7. Se supone que tengo que traer mi ordenador. I'm supposed to bring my computer. I'm supposed to bring my computer. Yeah. Number 8. ¿No se supone que esta película da miedo? ¿No se supone que esta película da miedo? Isn't this movie supposed to be scary? Isn't this movie supposed to be scary? Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be scary. Scary. Que da miedo. We say to be scary. Not that it gives fear or anything like that. To be scary for a movie. Now, if you said film, That's okay as well. Film or movie. In North America, we tend to say movie, whereas in Europe, it's more common to say film. So I have this idea in my head. I always used to hear Europeans saying films. So I always thought of films as being maybe more artistic, which is the idea we have in North America of it's a European film. It's very artistic. It's a French film. And then Hollywood makes movies, you know, with Sylvester Stallone or Tom Cruise. Those are movies, you know. In my opinion, this is not the rule, but this is the way I see it, because the word movie is more American. So American people associate them, you know, more with American movies, let's say. Isn't this movie supposed to be scary? Number 9. Supongo que nunca llegaremos a saber la verdad. I suppose we'll never know the truth. I suppose we'll never know the truth. And number 10. ¿No se supone que fumar es malo para la salud? Isn't smoking supposed to be bad for your health? Isn't smoking supposed to be bad for your health? All right, there we go, our 10 sentences. And I must admit, I think that this is one of the most difficult, maybe one of the most difficult lists that we have done on the Verb Circus, one of the most difficult lists that we have seen. So give yourself a pat on the back if you got 9 or 10 of those right, because they're getting a bit more challenging, I think. Okay. But thank you. Good job. Well done. Now, if you got less than 5, be careful and review the class. It's a good idea if you get this class recorded, or when we air it again, to review it. Right? And you can always, I have a CD with some of these episodes. It's available in the Vaughn shop for $9.99, baogantienda.com. You can receive the first 20 shows, and you can review them over and over, and you can learn the structures, and you can really master the different uses of the verbs inside and out, right? Because we really practice, machacar, over and over, repeating until you gain fluency with these key verbs. And this one is not on the CD, but we will air it again, and you can always ask the radio station. You can write to us and say, please send me an MP3, and they will sell it to you, but it's not very expensive. But you can get these episodes, capítulos of the program, if you ask. You have to ask the radio station. So go to the website baoganradio.com, because I feel, especially with this show, there's so much information that it's difficult to internalize it all by listening once. But let's move on to the next part of the show. I want to talk about the word supposedly. Supuestamente. Okay? Supuestamente. So we could say Rolexes are supposedly the best watches in the world. Now we could say they are supposed to be. They are supposed to be. Or we could say supposedly they are the best watches in the world. Supposedly Vaughn teachers are the best in the country. I suppose they are. I believe they are. Supposedly you should have at least an intermediate level to understand this show. Supposedly, if you're understanding me now, then you must have at least an intermediate level, an upper intermediate level. Although I know a lot of listeners that don't. Supposedly a lot of super advanced students listen to the show and enjoy it as well. And beginner students as well can appreciate a lot of aspects of this show also. Now we also have the structure supposing that. Suponiendo que, which is almost like saying if. Supposing that I started speaking German right now, would you keep listening? If I started speaking German, would you keep listening? Supposing that. So it's behaving like if, essentially. Supposing that we moved on to the interrogative challenge, would you be able to form the questions correctly? Supposing that we moved on. Would you? Supposing that. Well, I think we should find out. Supposing that we move on now, do you think you'll be able to form the questions? There's only one way to find out, so let's do it. Let's move on to the interrogative challenge. Interrogative challenge. Yes, you heard the sound. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. It is time for the interrogative challenge. I will give you the answer to a question. In fact, 10 questions. I'm going to give you the answers and you ask me the questions that I have answered. So if I say, it's on the floor, you say, where is it? Okay, are you ready? Number 1. He's not supposed to do it because he doesn't have a license. Why isn't he supposed to do it? Because he doesn't have a license. Why? Number 2. I suppose the storm caused the power to go out. To go out, right? The power. It went out. I suppose the storm caused the power to go out. What do you suppose caused the power to go out? Number 3. I suppose he works downtown. Where do you suppose he works? Number 4. Mike is supposed to be the leader. Who is supposed to be the leader? Number 5. It was supposed to melt. What was supposed to happen? What was supposed to happen? Oh, it was supposed to melt. Okay. Number 6. Stephen was supposed to do it. Who was supposed to do it? Number 7. I suppose it happened just before midnight. When do you suppose it happened? When do you suppose it happened? Number 8. I thought basketball players were supposed to be tall and thin. What did you think basketball players were supposed to look like? So, tall and thin is a characteristic of his appearance. So we say, what does he look like? Right? He's tall and thin. What does he look like? Okay? He's friendly and funny. What is he like? But when we're asking about appearance, we say, what does he look like? So here, I thought basketball players were supposed to be tall and thin. What did you think basketball players were supposed to look like? Oh, I thought they were supposed to be tall and thin. Okay. Number 9, I suppose he fell down the stairs. What do you suppose happened? What do you suppose happened? Number 10. They're supposed to arrive at 6 o'clock. What time are they supposed to arrive? They're supposed to arrive at 6 o'clock. All right, very good. We have just looked at 10 questions using this verb and this structure. So I hope you did all right. How did you do? Some of those were a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky this time, isn't it? A little bit more difficult. All right. It's time to move on. Expression of the day. Yes, it is time for our expression of the day. The expression of the day today, well, I've been thinking about this. Ever since the verb wheel showed me this verb, suppose, and really, there aren't very many expressions using suppose. So I will say our expression of the day is quite simply, suppongo que sí. I suppose so. I suppose so. Is that good enough? Is that a good enough expression? I suppose so. I suppose so, because this is a very common structure. We say this all the time. Call it an expression if you like, but it's something that we say all the time with suppose. I suppose so. Supongo que sí. I suppose so. But, maybe that's not good enough. I want to make it a little bit more dynamic. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to offer you a chance to tell me another expression or even if it's an interesting sentence using the verb to suppose or the structure to be supposed to. So what I'd like you to do is send me an email. My email address is kmillar, K-M-I-L-L-A-R, K-millar, K-M-I-L-L-A-R, @bausis, VAUSYS.com. Or you can send the message through the website vaughanradio.com. And there's a feedback section on the website and say Verb Circus. Put that in the subject line. Send me a message. And if you can send me an interesting sentence or an interesting expression using the verb to suppose or to be supposed to, the first person will receive a free CD, the Verb Circus CD, which is now available for sale in the Vaughan Tienda for $9.99, by the way. If you enjoy the show, it's a great way, as I was saying before, to internalize these structures, to expose yourself to these common and very important structures over and over. So please, if you're interested in getting a copy for free, just be the first one to send me an interesting email. But it has to be real. It has to be valid, something that makes sense and is interesting, and I will get you a copy of the CD. But I can only give away one, so you'll have to be quick. Okay? But thank you so much for listening to the program today. My name is Kyle, as you know, and I'll be back tomorrow. We are now broadcasting Mondays and Fridays from 6 to 6:30, and also again on Mondays and Wednesdays from 2:30 to 3. So thank you so much for listening to the Verb Circus, the show that's supposed to be the best to help you master the most important verbs in English. See you next time. Bye-bye.